So one of our core beliefs is that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that no one should perish unnecessarily, and we should all have everlasting life. That is the love of God extended toward us. And as we talked about earlier in this series, what makes us an enemy of God, the reason it's the gospel of grace and peace, what makes us an enemy of God is our personal rejection of his love, our personal rejection of his plan for our life, our personal rejection of his pathway to redemption makes us an enemy of God. Right? When we reject his love, because God is love, when we reject him, when we reject his Son, and so what Jesus did is he was the exegesis of God. He came from behind the curtain to the front of the curtain to show us the very nature of the perfect Father. And he came to be a sacrifice for us so that God could express his love on the earth, because all love requires a sacrifice. So the incarnation of Jesus and the trials he went through leading to the cross relate directly to our earthly trials. He knows our infirmities. He knows what we go through. He knows the tears you shed. He knows the depression that you felt. He knows the feelings of worthlessness. He knows the feelings of confusion because you've been taught works in the church. He knows the fact that you were taught a blended gospel by people who blend things. Christ alone becomes Christ plus works. Faith alone because faith plus works. So we trust in God, not in our own efforts. In fact, some of you need to write your spiritual to-do list out. Take that list, look at it, and burn it, and then get up every morning and say, Christ, live through me today. Show me what you would have me to do. Don't let me waste my time on giving you things that you haven't asked for. So Jesus faced physical, emotional, and spiritual agony during his life on earth and during his crucifixion. There were different things that hurt Jesus' heart. Ouch, Charlie.
Ouch, Charlie! Ow! Charlie, that really hurt.
You hurt my heart. There were things that hurt his heart. He had to cleanse the temple. I'm sure that wasn't Jesus' favorite day. I'm known as a hard guy in Africa, a hard man. And I'm known for being tough. I mean, really tough. And many times I'm riding around in a car with guys with machine guns. I am, as they say in Spanish, el patron. And I don't particularly relish that place. It's not something that I necessarily enjoy. But God has called me to approach this ministry as if I'm a father. And so that means that not only do I unconditionally love my sons, and I work to know them, and I unconditionally accept them, and I work to meet their needs, but sometimes I have to bring correction into their lives. And God looked at us and said, look, if you don't receive my correction, you're as bastard sons and daughters.
You are the bastard, though. Let me give you some advice, bastard. Never forget what you are.
You do not belong to me. A son who refuses correction, it does not belong to me. And so Jesus came to show us that even though he was going through pain, that he still had an intimate personal relationship with his perfect Father. And he still had the ability to say, not thy will, or not my will, but thine be done. What would you have me to do, God? And that should be the ultimate question on your mind and on your lips is, God, I know you know me. I know you know what is absolutely best for me. I know you know the end of the story for my life. So God, what's the next step? I don't have to know the whole picture. One of the things I'm famously known for is seeing down the road, years, sometimes decades, of what will happen. Being a futurist, if you will. And understanding the signs of the times. That's what I'm known for. I've been called a watchman on the wall by dozens and dozens of spiritual leaders. There's a tremendous amount of respect for my opinion about what's going to go on in the future. I understand that. But it is more for you today to understand that I may know through a glass darkly what's going to go on in the future, but God knows completely, fully, and without a question mark what your future entails. And He's already worked your stupid into the plan. He's already worked your failings into the plan. He's already worked your strengths that Satan poured jet fuel on and pushed them to weaknesses into the plan. He knows you, honey. And He knows the things that you will go through. And He knows the hardships that you'll experience. C.S. Lewis said this, hardship often prepares ordinary people for extraordinary. Hardship prepares ordinary people for the extraordinary. See, when you get saved and you know God as your personal Savior, it's not, it's not the Carpenter song, and I don't know which Carpenter song you want to pull. They were all crap. So it's not that. It's not the happily ever after hour. You get saved, you get born again, and you will experience direct opposition to your forward movement. You're going to experience resistance. Why? Because God is taking you to a spiritual gym, and He's wanting you to lift weights. And so when you're going through stuff, understand that Jesus is not unaware of what you're going through. I mean, He's asleep on a boat one night and there's a big storm. And a lot of people have this in a lake. I don't think this happened in a lake. I think it actually happened on the ocean. And He's asleep on the ocean one night, big boat, and all the disciples are completely panicked. There's waves and a storm and they're freaking out. Probably many of them had never been on an ocean-sized boat before, never crossed the ocean. Okay? And Jesus looks at the water and says, "Be still." But they woke Him up. And they said, "Master, don't you care? We're about to drown here. Don't you know? Don't you care?" And Jesus was asleep, but He was not unaware. He knew what was going on. And He was preparing them to have their faith built. One of the tragedies in life is when we don't allow our children to experience our adversity. Okay? When we don't allow our children to experience our adversity, we don't prepare them for their own future adversity. What happens in a lot of Christians' lives is they're parenting their children and a storm comes, adversity comes, and you shield your children from your adversity. Look, we're sailing the boat and the storm is coming and we're pulling the sails back and we're trimming the sails and the storm hits and we take little Junior, okay, Junior Jonathan, and we put him down in the hull of the boat and we say, "Jonathan, here's a king-size bed, here's microwave popcorn, and the children's Netflix account. And you just entertain yourself while Mom and Dad handle this. And then God provides for you, gives you a miraculous out to your situation, empowers you to ride through the storm, strengthens you, gives you a grace." And Jonathan's missed the whole thing. He's sitting on a king-size bed eating microwave popcorn watching a video. And then we wonder why in high school or college, little Jonathan can't handle the pressures of life. And he falls apart and he really is not trusting God to help him through. And mom and dad are looking at each other going, you know, we know these lessons, we've learned them, but you failed to transmit them to the next generation. The place for little Jonathan is right by your side during the storm. Not that you freak him out and not that he has to know every gory detail, but the bottom line is he needs to know you're going through something, and he needs to know that you're trusting God for deliverance. You're trusting God for strength. You're trusting God for provision to do what God has called you to do. And so Jesus, unlike the temptation to believe that he is unaware of what's going on in your life, or he's silent, or he's somehow not working on your behalf, you have God's undivided attention. He is so large and so capable that he can give each and every one of us his undivided attention. You say, well, how does that work? I don't know how it works. I'm looking through a glass darkly, but I can tell you that he is an infinite God. There is no beginning. There is no end. And his mercy endures forever. And his love is without measure in your life. And as you trust him to know the future, as you trust him to guide you on your path, as you trust him that your footsteps as the righteous, you say, well, I'm not always righteous. You are, honey, if he's got you. He imputed righteousness to you. And so don't wake up in the morning and check your Christian to-do list. Wake up in the morning and say, Christ in me is a hope of glory. Christ in me is my role as God's hand extended on the earth. I will reflect him today. The joy of the Lord is my strength. I will sing hallelujah in the dark times. I will proclaim his greatness on the earth, and I will proclaim his faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. New mercies I've seen. God has worked in me a great faith. Not for myself, but for little poor kids around the world. Widows and orphans and the oppressed. God has worked in me a faith to believe him for great things and great offerings and great times of ministry and spiritual renewal. God has worked in me great faith to see that there's a discipleship program that is able to cross boundaries and cross into areas that it's illegal to have a discipleship program. But we're going to have it. He's worked in me that faith. And I hope that you will grasp the hem of his garment and allow his power to flow through you and in you and bring you to a place where you are in right standing with God, and the grace and peace of God are evident in your life, that he has given you the things you don't deserve. And you are no longer his enemy, you are his son. So crawl up in his lap and cry, Abba, Father.